Shabbat Shalom. Ay, 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 ay.
B'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. Ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin.
Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. These are the intermediate days of Pesach, Chol HaMoed, as we say. This is the time you've had your Seders. I know some of you are doing Seders this weekend. It's good, enjoy them. But we've had our Seders the first 2 nights. And during the festival now is a time to replay the Seder, to think about some of the themes that we evoked in the Seder, to remind ourselves of some of the inspirational words we found in the Haggadah, and let those words lift us up and also carry us into the springtime, because after all, that's what spring's all about. So we're going to touch on some of those themes during our service. You have been getting mailings from the temple that capture themes from Passover and ask you to reflect on them and continue to do so. And that's what it's all about, springing into spring, but also springing with the message of Passover in our hearts. We continue on our prayer book with the candle blessing. I'd like to invite Lisa Niver to come forward. We're on page 2 in our books here, and if you're online, your flip book is on page 3. Please rise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you. Please be seated. We continue on page 13. Shir L'Adonai, Shir Chadash. Spring is about rebirth and renewal, a chance to sing songs of praise and blessing and uplift with a new spirit.
Shiru L'Adonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru L'Adonai Shir Chadash. Shiru L'Adonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru L'Adonai Shir Chadash. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru L'Adonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru L'Adonai Shir Chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
We continue with Lachado D on page 20 in your books, page 5 in your flip books. As we reach the last verse, we bow face the entrance to the sanctuary and bow to the left and the right. If you're at home with us, stand up as well and bow to the entrance to your house. Welcome Shabbat into your home. Shabbat blessings and Shabbat peace.
Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad U'shemo echad L'shem u'tiferet V'litila Lecha dodi Likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hi mekor ha-bracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machashavat echila Lecha dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Lecha dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha uvtzola Tochem hunei Am segula boi chala Lecha dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekavela Lecha dodi likrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela.
Page 22 in our book, 7 in the flip book, Tzadik HaTamar. The world is blossoming and blooming around us. The rains have brought us green grasses and beautiful, beautiful flowers, wildflowers. So the imagery here, Tzadik HaTamar, the righteous will blossom like a date palm, is resonant, particularly for us in California this time of the year.
Tzadik HaTamar yifrach ke'erez balvanon yizker shetulim bevet Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun beseva v'shenim v'rananim tzuri velov latabo.
Page 28, the Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
Page 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai ohev Hamo Yisrael.
Amen.
Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam, Leolam Va'ed.
You can be seated. The Micha Mocha is a song of celebration. Tradition says that Miriam and the women danced as that song was sung, and so when Debbie Friedman wrote her words, she placed them to music, to uplifting, danceable music. If you want to follow along and sing along, you can find Miriam's song on page 342. We'll start with that and then find ourselves in the Micha Mocha to also inspire the season.
And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. And Miriam was a weaver of unique variety. The tapestry she wove was one which sang our history. With every strand and every thread she crafted her delight. A woman touched the spirit and it dances through the night. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced the whole night long. Verse 3. And Miriam the prophet took her timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her just as she had planned. And Miriam raised her voice in song, she sang with praise and might. We've just lived through a miracle, we're going to dance tonight. Mika mocha ba'elim Adonai, Mika mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh, Nora tehilot osefele, Nora tehilot osefele. Lai, 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 lai. Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai.
So Rabbi Stern has been guiding us with these intentions for renewal that are so much a part of the season of spring and the season of Passover. And along with the seasons of renewal, there's also just the renewal each and every day of waking up. And that is the blessing of Hashkiveinu that says, Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed, to a new day, a new dawn, and to new hope. Hashkiveinu is on page 42 if you're here, page 11 if you are home with us.
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzetzenu me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Throughout our Passover story, Moses and Pharaoh, in fact, and the Jewish people, the Israelites, ask for otiot, ask for signs from God to God's power. And we see the serpent and we see the 10 plagues, right? We see these signs of power. And then we come to Shabbat and we see the sweetest sign of our covenant, the sweetest sign of our week, the sign of Shabbat, which is meant to be the reminder of our covenant and our relationship with God and with our world. And Vishamru is that reminder each and every week, page 44.
V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת וינפש ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם
And into that vision of wholeness and that notion of vayinafash, that extra soul, we take a minute to offer a prayer for those maybe a little bit further from that wholeness, those in our lives and in our community and in our world who are in need of healing. And so if you're at home and want to share the name of someone perhaps that you are praying for on this Shabbat, I know we here on the Bima, and I know our community joins us in sending prayers to those in Israel who were injured and the family of those killed in recent attacks in Israel over Pesach. And if you're thinking of someone on this Shabbat and you want to just shine those names forward, we'll think of them and gather in them in our prayers for healing and for wholeness. The Mishaberach.
Mishaberach Avoteinu Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mi sheberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope.
May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision of tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mi sheberach avoteinu, mi sheberach imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer. Hear our prayer and bless us as well.
We invite you now to rise as you are able for a silent Amidah, to take these moments either for the words of the prayer book, which go from 48 to 62 or 14 and 15, or the words of your own heart. And we'll invite you as you complete your own prayers to be seated at your own pace.
The words can be found in our Haggadahs that we use on our Seder nights. The words say this: "This promise has stood for our parents and for us in good stead. For not just one enemy has stood against us to wipe us out, but in every generation there have been those who have stood against us to wipe us out. Yet the Holy One keeps on saving us from their hands." This is a version of the Hishama by Yonatan Razel. The words cannot be found in your sidurs, but you can follow along at home by looking up the Hishama. V'hishamda lavoteinu, v'hishamda lavoteinu velanu, shelo echad bilvad amed aleinu lechalotenu, amad aleinu lechalotenu. Vehi she'amda lavotenu, Vehi she'amda lavotenu velanu, shelo echad bilvad omed aleinu lechalotenu, amad aleinu lechalotenu. V'chakadosh baruch hu matzilenu, matzilenu mi'adam. V'chakadosh baruch hu matzilenu,
יצילנו מידם, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עומד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו.
One of the many blessings of WISE is that we appreciate our colleagues, and our colleagues are able to inspire us and challenge us. And so when we have a chance to dialogue with each other, it's great because we don't just stand up here and do it off the top of our heads, obviously, right? We've prepared, we've spoken to each other, we've already debated. So we're burnt out already. Not really. But we bring in little bits and pieces that inspire each other. So anyways, before we got up here, Rabbi Sari said, it's a great framing, our cantorial intern, Andrew, started with Hishama, because it's this notion of that there are eternally people who rise to oppose us, and that we count on salvation. Where's salvation going to come from? The traditionalist says salvation comes from God.
I'm getting a note. Rabbi Stern has to fix his talit.
Oh, I'm out of kilter here. Sorry. That
you said a mouthful.
that I was mid-sentence, whatever. Now I have to come back to my thought. But in any case, that there's always somebody who's going to rise up to oppose us. And Passover, at its core, is a holiday that recognizes salvation. You have the egg on your Seder plate, that's about rebirth. It's spring is about the rebirth of the world, if you will. And even the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt as they crossed the Red Sea was about the renewal of the people, the restoration of the people, and really, if you will, the birth of the people as a nation. So these notions of redemption and of salvation are wrapped into Passover. In fact, that's why you open the door to Elijah, because that story of redemption, that's the Passover story, for the rabbis was a vision of redemption that's going to come in the world to come.
Right, and I would say, I think one of the things about Vahisha Amda and Yonatan Razel, who wrote that particular setting, is a very religious Jew, Israeli, right, is I think one of the deep questions of the Pesach Seder for all of us is consistently who does the redeeming, right? Who is the Redeemer? And if you look at different Haggadot from different periods of time and different places, you get different answers. And to what purpose is redemption? So that's where I'm going to turn to you, because I think you have an answer.
Yeah, great. So the story of redemption and liberation is in the Seder, and really, if you take the large view of Jewish history, you get this cycle of oppression and exile and redemption and fleeting redemption and back to oppression and exile. And certainly for a people who has that as their historical experience and their historical memory, a holiday of redemption is deeply meaningful, because as you sit at your Seder table, wherever you might find yourself, in the dark recesses of Europe, in the deserts of Arabia, and your experience is one of oppression, you sing the song of Passover, and it's a story of God redeeming the slaves, and that in turn means, well, we can hope that one day God will redeem us, and I think on some level that has propelled our people forward for centuries. But I want to add another layer, because what we have to ask ourselves are, why has our central story, the story that we remember that we were slaves, why do we need to remember that? Why not remember that we were free people? Why not remember that we were wanderers? But we start by saying we were slaves in Egypt. What's a slave? A slave is the lowest of the low. A slave can't decide when he or she goes to sleep. A slave can't decide when he or she eats. A slave works with no reward, no benefit to themselves other than to live another day, to suffer another day. Why choose that story as our central story? After all, there were at least 1,000 years of Jewish kings and Jewish queens, and there were 1,000 years of Jewish military victories and Jewish triumphs. We could have made that our core story. In the Bible, though, despite the fact that all these kings and queens exist, there's no holiday that celebrates kings and queens. There's no holiday that celebrates Jewish victories. What's the holiday? We remember our enslavement. So what do we take away from that, the fact that that's the story that we tell over and over again? Well, I think it's found in the most essential verse for me, that is the core of the Passover message. V'ger lo tilchatz, v'atem yadatem et nefesh hager, ki gerim ha'item ba'eretz Mitzrayim. You shall not oppress a stranger, for, and here's the phrase, you know the feelings of a stranger. Atem yadatem et nefesh hager, having yourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt.
Not just the feelings, like you know the soul. Like
you know what's inside. You know what's exactly right. So the tale of the Jewish Exodus exists, and we tell it over and over again. And there are thousands of different versions of the Haggadah to retell the story. Because it's not just a tale that says we were redeemed. It's not just a tale that says celebrate your redemption. It's a tale that says because you know what it is to be redeemed, you have to feel deeply the capacity to redeem others. It has to be your mission to know the heart of the stranger. And what's a stranger? A stranger is anyone who's disenfranchised. It's a wander. It's someone who doesn't have power in community. It's someone who risks being oppressed, who can be taken advantage of easily. Think in your minds of all those people in our world today who are the, quote, strangers, the disenfranchised, the powerless, the marginalized. And the Jewish tradition, the Torah says, celebrate Passover so that you'll remember the story, so you'll know the heart of the stranger. You'll feel it in your heart. So you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to I'm going to agree even further that, one of the things we talked about yesterday at our first day of Pesach services is, right, not only you celebrate Passover, but Passover is the impetus for everything else, right? The rest of Torah doesn't exist without Passover.
Shabbat, the
right?
holidays,
You can have Genesis without Passover, but you can't have any of the rest of it. And so, that is not just central to our celebration of Passover, but really to everything.
Yeah, it's the core of being Jewish. So ultimately, the story is about building and growing and developing a sense of profound empathy, but not merely empathy that provides impetus for acting for the redemption of others as well. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I should say that overall, if you've ever heard me teach, you know that I am in complete agreement that the primary lesson of the Exodus is this profound empathy and wide, really boundless empathy is actually the language I often use. But for probably either for whatever reason or for myriad reasons this year and right now, if you ask me what is the meaning of Passover or what are we supposed to glean from Passover, I am really feeling the pull towards Mitzrayim, towards Mitzrayim is the Hebrew word for Egypt, right? Even today, if you're talking about going to Egypt, you still say Mitzrayim, and not just the Mitzrayim as the locus of the institution of slavery, but as also what Mitzrayim means in Hebrew, which is the narrow place. And so with that, I think I'm also thinking, and I acknowledge that this is almost maybe selfish or maybe the beginning of boundless empathy, which is an empathy for ourselves. So not surprisingly, Rabbi Stern quoted Torah, and I'm going to quote Mishnah, that tracks. So the Mishnah quotes, and we quote it in the Haggadah year after year, which to me is one of the central texts of the Seder. B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam lir'od et atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In every generation, a person is obligated to see themselves as if we ourselves had come out of Egypt. And so I want to say we might actually translate it, in every generation, we are obligated to see ourselves as if we ourselves had left a narrow place, that we had left something that was constricting us, or left something, a place or a thing that is squeezing out, right? Taking up the space in us for empathy. And so Rabbi Stern asked me fairly, what are those things? I hear people talk about the narrow places, but what is that? And so, I just want to name, maybe it is grief, right? Where you are constricted and can't get through it.
Confined.
Right? Or maybe it is anger. Maybe it is financial pressure. Maybe it is illness. Maybe it is aging. Maybe it is job insecurity, right? There's so many narrow places that we can find ourselves in. Maybe it is loneliness. I could probably keep going. There's a lot of narrow places. So I sort of love the idea, I think. I know I love the idea that we don't end Seder in the Promised Land, right? We end Seder by saying next year in Jerusalem. And so it's
an unfinished story.
Right, it's an unfinished story, and I love that for us. Right? It's not neatly wrapped up in a bow, because I think if it was, like, we'd have no reason to revisit the story or the Seder, and we'd have no reason to like revisit that impulse to empathy, right? We could just say, like, we left, we got there, we're done. And I want to say that Mishnah also doesn't tell us where we need to get to. It just says, Chayav Adam lirot atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim, that we came out of Egypt. It doesn't say that we need to see ourselves as if we've reached the Promised Land, and that feels really permissive to me right now. Right? The permission is maybe we just need to get ourselves out of the narrow place, and maybe that's enough for right now. Right? It like takes a little bit of pressure off. And like maybe if I can just get out of that narrow place, right? If I can get myself out of that like tunnel vision, maybe I can actually get a little bit more, change my perspective, get a little bit more of that empathy. So I wanted to close with a poem that someone shared with me. I shared it yesterday during our services. It's by Rabbi Amnon Ribak, who's an Israeli Reform rabbi, recently ordained by our movement in Israel. And it's called Kol Adam Tzarich Mitzrayim. Every person needs Egypt. And I loved the idea, and I actually love where it ends. So I'm just going to share it with all of you. Kol Adam Tzarich Mitzrayim. Every person needs to have a certain Egypt, to be as Moshe themselves inside it with a strong arm or with grinding teeth. Every person needs terror and great darkness, and comfort and promise and redemption, that they would know to look up at the sky. Every person needs one prayer that would constantly be on their lips. Every person needs to bend one time. Every person needs a shoulder. Kol Adam Tzarich Mitzrayim. Every person needs to have a certain Egypt to redeem themselves from it, from the house of slavery, to go out in the middle of the night to the desert of fears, to march straight into the waters and to see them open before them to both sides. Every person needs a shoulder on which to carry the bones of Joseph. Every person needs to straighten their backs. Kol Adam Tzarich Mitzrayim. Every person needs to have a certain Egypt and a Jerusalem, and one long journey that they will forever remember in their feet.
Just kind of letting that sink in. It's beautiful, right? Yeah, just the note, you know, there's the pithy version of that is whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think on some level, right? And it's sort of about that, and the notion that
that is Hishama. Literally, right? Like like it keeps happening.
Yeah.
And we keep showing up to tell the story over and over again.
Sometimes the focus is on just getting out, whatever it is, getting over it, getting through it. But what Jewish tradition says is it's not enough to get through it. You have to learn the lesson that comes from it and carry it forward, right?
And still be willing to say, I think, you know, the other piece that I think about a lot is that each and every year, no matter what, right, no matter where you are,
come back to it.
Literally and figuratively, right, whether you're in the deepest recesses of Europe or your family is fleeing somewhere and you're in a way station somewhere in between, or you're in the comfort of your home in, say, Sherman Oaks, right, you still say, Bashana haba b'Yerushalayim, right, that it's not enough just to leave Egypt, that you have to have a Jerusalem that you're looking towards.
Even when you're in Jerusalem.
Even when you're in Jerusalem.
Say B'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim.
Maybe all the more so.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean,
Thanks, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Well, with that, prayers for our countries, for Israel and for the United States, and certainly the prayers are not meant to be affirmations of what is as much as affirmations of what can yet be. Aspirations, I should say, of what can yet be for both of our nations. We know that so much of our worlds are broken. There's so much work yet to be done. And the prayers are about finding the spirit and the hope to go forward. So first, a prayer for the United States on page 258 in your Mishkan Tefillah and page 20 in your flip book at home. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit, as we say, Amen. Amen.
Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzor Yisrael v'goalo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Geulatenu.
This is our newly written prayer. Avinu Shabashamayim, we ask you to bless the state of Israel, whose founding continues to inspire us with its promise of freedom, justice, equality, and understanding. Strengthen the hands of those who defend Israel's borders, its security, and its democracy. Stir in its leaders' devotion to the principles of liberty, of justice, of equality, and of compassion. Open the minds and the hearts of its inhabitants to one another. May they turn to one another in understanding, in dignity, and in love. Then shall its light truly shine among the nations, and its boughs, like the olive branch, spread far in splendor, bringing life to all who sit under their shade. And together we say, Amen. Amen.
So we are now with the second day of Pesach. We are now in the period of the Omer. And so we are going together count the Omer. So I'm going to invite everyone to stand up. It is unfortunately not in the Shabbat Mishkan Tefillah. So I will do, if it's okay with everyone, I will be the shaliach, the messenger for counting the Omer together. And we traditionally say, Hineni, Hinenu. We are together, Muchanim umuzmanim, prepared and ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer, for the sake of the unification of all of God's names and for the sake of harmonizing word and deed, for the sake of the tapestry of all peoples, the mixed multitude leaving oppression behind and journeying together into the wilderness where God speaks, the wilderness where our ears open and our hearts open to each other and to the divine broadcast that is always sounding. We say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom shnei yamim la'omer, shehem shnei yamim la'omer. Today is the second day of the Omer, which is 2 days of the Omer. And so we turn now to the Kiddush for Erev Shabbat. And so we always like to celebrate the joys and the sweetness in our community. So if you are at home and celebrating something sweet, if you have a birthday or an anniversary or something new beginning, we invite you to share it. And if you're here in person and you have a birthday or an anniversary or something new beginning and you want to share it, you can feel free to just call that out. Anyone? No birthdays?
I just moved into a new apartment.
Mazal tov,
Thank you.
tit chadesh, we say, right?
Toda
Towards
rabah.
newness. Anything else? Is it Taurus season? Gemini season? I think it's Taurus season, right? I think it is.
Not
Taurus
Gemini
season.
yet.
Well, wait, we're getting pointed at. Mike is getting pointed at. You are getting pointed at. Oh, you have an anniversary, I'm told. Oh, not till
It's
July.
not till July.
That seems, I mean, we can, let's start celebrating now. Why not? I would also say the sweetness of the season, all of us.
Rabbi
Yes,
Stern,
Rabbi Stern.
child.
Already 11 days old, 12 days old.
11
so we've
days
had the
old.
Brit
We
Milah.
love him already.
So we're in
I
the
got to
second
see some
week.
videos, guys. Be jealous. I got to see videos. I haven't gotten to
have
see
the
him in
album on my
person
phone.
yet. And I will say the sweetness of this season and to having all, in whatever way we did, come out of Mitzrayim, and the sweetness of that new beginning. And so for that, we will turn to the Kiddush for Erev Shabbat. It is on page 5 in Mishkan Tefillah and page 22 if you're at home.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddashanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila le'mikra'e kodesh Zecher litziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta Yotanu hidashta Mikol hamim V'shabbat kodshecha B'ahava uvratzon Hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat L'chaim.
Delicious. We turn now to page 282 or page 23 for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol la'tetz gedula le'otzer breshit shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot velo samanu kemishbechot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem vegor aleinu kechol hamonam ve'anachnu korim ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני ומלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. So on Wednesday morning, we'll gather for Yizkor as Passover comes to a close, but I know well that a lot of Seder tables have a lot of empty chairs, in our hearts at least. It is one of those times of year, I think, that brings into stark relief people who have sat with us in years past who don't sit with us any longer. So I'm going to share this poem that I've always loved on page 290. I love the second half of it, but I'll share the whole thing, thinking about those chairs and the people who used to sit in them. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. So if you are here or at home and you are observing the period of Shiva, 7 days following the loss of a loved one, and you want to rise or share a name, we invite you to do so. If you are in a period of Shloshim, the 30 days following the loss of a loved one, if you are in the period of Shana, which is the first year traditionally following a parent's death, but if you are remembering in that first year. If you are observing Yartzeit on this Shabbat and want to share the name. And if it is your custom to rise or you want to rise in memory or solidarity, we'll invite you to do so. Kadisha Tome is on page 294. Yitzgadal v'yitzkadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach chirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chaye echon uv'yom echon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach leolam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. So in a moment, we're going to close, I believe, with a Passover classic.
Oh, yeah.
But before that, just a couple of thank yous. First, to those of you who joined us here or at home, thank you for coming and celebrating Shabbat with us. To Tali and to Jeff, thank you for bringing us such beautiful music through your playing, but also through your souls. To our amazing crew who makes this happen each and every week, makes it possible for us to be here and for you to be here at home. Our security and ops team, please thank them for keeping us safe and keeping our campus beautiful. And to our clergy team, and Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom. And I think you're going to recognize this one.
Ilu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et Shabbat, natan lanu et Shabbat, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Last verse. Ilu natan lanu et Torah, natan lanu et Torah, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach.